Hear your favorite NFL legends sharing their stories and insights every week, right here on Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari. Take it away, guys.
There's no way out.
And now back with us here on Thursday Night Tailgate is former infielder Kurt Bevacqua. Let me remind you about Kurt's background. He is from Miami Beach, Florida, played his college ball at Miami-Dade College. He was originally drafted by the New York Mets in the 32nd round in 1966, and then the Atlanta Braves in the 6th round of the January 1967 draft. Didn't sign with either of those, but came back and signed with the Cincinnati Reds, who selected him in the 12th round of the secondary phase of the June 1967 draft. He was traded to the Cleveland Indians in 1971 and made his major league debut that June. He earned the nickname Dirty Kurt for regularly having the dirtiest uniform on the team. He played in the major leagues from 1971 to 1985 for the Indians, Royals, Pirates, Brewers, Rangers, and Padres. And we are very honored that he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Kurt, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Welcome back, Kurt.
Gentlemen, how are you?
We're fantastic. Kurt, how have you been, my friend?
Yeah, you know what? Everything's good. Everything is good. I'm enjoying the start of baseball and spring training, and a little saddened by the retirement of Ichiro and the passing of my college coach, which happened last week. Demi Maneri from Miami-Dade. His son Paul is the head baseball coach at LSU. But I did get to see him before he passed. I went down to Baton Rouge with my boys and put them both in one of LSU's baseball camps a couple of months ago, and I got a chance to see Demi, and he was all smiles, so it was good stuff.
Good.
Kurt, I want to take you back to 1966 and 67. I was curious as I was reading, through, your introduction and then obviously doing the research to have you back on the show. I was curious, why did you decide not to sign with the Mets and the Braves and then later to go and sign with Cincinnati?
Well, it was all because I wanted to go back to the national championship game in Grand Junction, Colorado. We had lost the game in the 9th inning with 2 outs to Nassau Community College in 1966. And I wanted to go back and win the national championship with the junior college. It didn't have anything to do with the offers. As a matter of fact, the offer that I got from the Mets was a heck of a lot more than I ended up getting from Cincinnati. But it had everything to do with just going back to school in order to, have an opportunity to do what we didn't do that year in 1966. And as you well know, not only is it hard enough to get to the national championship game at all, but it's difficult to go to the championships 2 years in a row because of the talent that there was down in the state of Florida and southern Georgia, which is the conference that we competed in. And we managed to make it in 1967. And unfortunately, we lost. So I didn't get to fulfill that dream, but I did get an opportunity to sign with Cincinnati as soon as that tournament was over. And I reported to Tampa about 2 weeks later and started my professional career.
And Kurt, I want to take you back to 1974 now because I'm from Pittsburgh, a huge Pirate fan. I used to come watch you play when you were there with the Pirates in '74, playing in Three Rivers Stadium. And one of our good friends here on the show was Al Oliver. And Al, you played with him there, and I believe in Texas as well. But wanted to get your memories of what it was like playing and watching Scoop.
Well, the memories that I have of playing with those Pirate teams, both in 74 and also in 80 when I got traded back there after they won the World Championship in 79. I sometimes wonder why they got me back, but that's neither here nor there. You brought up Al Oliver's name. What a great guy. I had the opportunity to see Al in the last couple of years at a charity golf tournament up in Binghamton, New York over the summer. And He hasn't changed a bit. He's still a soft-spoken guy that he was. He used to just sit in the club. He was one of those guys that he was like Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn was the same type of person as far as just sitting there and soaking it up, because you've got the Doc Ellises of the world and the Dave Parkers of the world, and believe it or not, the Willie Stargells of the world, who are the serious disturbers. And Al would just sit there and just grinning from ear to ear and loving every second of it. But he was never really the guy that was in the middle of it. That was left to other people. And it was the same thing when I was here in San Diego, with Tony Gwynn on the ball club. He did the same thing, the same type thing as Al did, with, just sitting back and laughing, Tony with that famous laugh of his, and Al with that big grin. And of course now Al is a minister. He's just such a fabulous guy. And I mentioned, when I look back on my time with the Pirates, the thing that I remember most is the quality of the teammates that I had on that ball club, both times, as a matter of fact. But I also have in my gut the disappointment of not getting the opportunity to play as much as I wanted to. I got very few at bats in Pittsburgh, especially in '74. It was a short experience, but a great experience. The people in Pittsburgh are fabulous. The players, to this day, I'm grateful that I got an opportunity to spend the time that I did with Doc and Willie and Parker and Bill Matlock and Ed Ott and Steve Nicosia and Candelaria and, everybody else that you can think of, the Steve Blasses of the world, who the people in Pittsburgh get to hear every night, on radio and TV out of the broadcast booth. And it was just a great thing. It really was. I mean, there's times that you look back on your career and you really smile. And that was one of the years that, even though playing and professionally for me, it wasn't a great time, it was a fabulous time, that I had with the guys on the club.
And Kurt, just to take that a step further, when I was looking back at that '74 season and the time that you were there, I mean, the guys that were, playing ahead of you, particularly in the infield, we had Frank Tavares, and Frank certainly had a lot of speed, but didn't have the glove and was ultimately traded for Tim Foley. I mean, you had Mario Mendoza, and we all know about the Mendoza line. Why didn't you get more at bats? That was sort of a thing for me, because neither one of those guys was a great hitter.
Well, there were also a couple of guys on that team that played middle infield and the corner infield spot where I played that were pretty good. And one of them was Richie Hebner, and the other one was Dave Cash. So I divided my time mostly between second and third, and Mendoza and Tavares were shortstops. And I specifically remember those guys because when I got to Pittsburgh, I didn't know what to expect when I got to Pittsburgh. It was just, it was another team. It was another league. I didn't have an opportunity to see a whole lot of those guys, because I had just started my career and I was in the American League. I wasn't even in the National League. So it was a time where, I had something caught in my throat. It was a time where, I'm going to a club where I'm starting out a whole new year down in Bradenton, Florida. And the first guy that I see running in the outfield was Doc Ellis. And he had curlers in his hair. And wow. Then I go in and you got a rookie by the name of Dave Parker, who's an Adonis. He was cut and as big as he was and as strong as he was, and with the vocabulary and rap, I guess you could call it, of Muhammad Ali, being able to do the different things. And the most impressive thing about Dave was that he could back it up. So it was so much fun. And the reason that I brought up the team again with opposed to Traveris and Mendoza was because of the size of the bats. I have in my office right here a bat that from Manny Sanguillen. And the bat's 36-38. And if you have any idea about baseball, 36-inch bat is fairly long. The bats they're using at the major league level now, I would say, are around 33.5 to 34 inches. The weight on the bats that they're using now probably averages around 32.5 ounces. Now, don't quote me on those numbers because it's just an educated guess. But the point I'm trying to make is the bats are much smaller nowadays than they were. Hence, the reason for so many more long balls. Because you can generate more bat speed through the hitting zone with a bat that's lighter. The reason, or at least one of the reasons, I think that lighter bats weren't used back then is because of the makeup of the wood. We use mostly ash bats. And unless you got deep into the tree and got some weight behind it, the bats would break rather easily. Nowadays, the wood they still mold the bats under the same guidelines as they did back then. But the wood is much harder. The Pittsburgh Pirates bats were so big, it was unbelievable to me, the sizes of the bats that these guys used. Sanguillen and Parker and Bob Robertson and Willie Stargell. I mean, the bat looked like toothpicks in their hands. I mean, if you remember the way Willie used to stand at the plate and whip the bat around in a circle 8 before the pitch came, his bat was 36-36. Traveris and Mendoza used a 33.5, 32 or 33 ounce bat. So when the bats came and you saw them in the bat bag or in the bat rack, Traveris and Mendoza's bats were they looked like little kids' bats next to all the rest of the bats that the Pirates had. And my bat was a modest 35-inch bat and maybe 33.5, 34 ounces. And I pick it up today and I go, how in the hell did I ever swing this bat? But when my 17-year-old son is a baseball player and so is my 15-year-old, they come into my office and they grab this bat, and you should see the first time they did it, when I put up Manny's bat on the wall, you should have seen the look on their face of astonishment. I mean, that somebody could use a bat that big. So those guys were so much fun. But you're right, I don't know why I didn't play, and it was miserable. And then to make it even, Danny Murtaugh was such a great guy. And I wasn't really there that long. And I had Jack McKeon on my show, on my podcast last week. And the first move that Jack made when he became general manager of a Major League Baseball team was out here in San Diego. And the first trade that he made and went on famously to become known as Trader Jack because of all the different trades that he made, he traded me. And he traded me to the Pittsburgh Pirates because he really liked this kid by the name of Luis Salazar. And Luis Salazar came to San Diego and ended up staying here for quite a few years along with me because I only went to Pittsburgh for about a year and then I turned around and signed as a free agent back here in San Diego. But I remember Danny Murtaugh calling me into his office and telling me, and I told this to Jack the other day on the phone because I went back to Jack McKeon the day in 1974 that Danny Murtaugh called. I don't mean to confuse people because Jack acquired me and traded me so many different times. Danny goes, young man, I think I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you very happy. And I said, what is this, Skip? And he goes, you've been traded back to the Royals. And that's where I came from. So I came from Kansas City, was traded to Pittsburgh, and then halfway through the season, the Royals got me back because this highly prized minor leaguer that they had just wasn't doing the job by the name of George Brett. So they got me back to play third base. So needless to say, I wasn't needed around there very long because of the exploits of George and the fact that Charlie Lau got a hold of him and Hal McRae and really taught them to be good hitters that they already were. But it was a fun time. It was a fun career. In 1980, when I got traded back to the Pirates, Chuck Tanner was the manager there, and God bless him. He just never wanted to be second guessed by the media. And I happened to do very well in my career against Steve Carlton. And there were some opportunities, that arose during my time there that Chuck was the manager, where if you've got Kurt Bevacqua and you've got Willie Stargell on the bench, it's an easy decision to make if you're a manager on who you want to send to the plate, especially if you don't want to be second guessed by the media. So Willie was always the guy, or if it was a key situation. As tough as Carlton was on left-handers, he would send Willie to the plate. He wouldn't send me. So the 1980 little time that I had there was actually much worse than the time that I had there in 1974. I mean, the guys, again, the players were fabulous. By that time it was Foley and Garner and Stargell was still there naturally. It was a great bunch of guys and a great baseball team and continued to be a great city. And we played in Three Rivers Stadium. There was no PNC Park at that time. And I remember the fans being great and the team being great. So that really got me through. If it wasn't for the fans and my teammates, I don't know what the hell would happen while I was in Pittsburgh.
Bob, questions for Kurt?
It's always great to talk to you, Kurt, and I'm sure that bat of Sanguillen in your office still swings at anything near the strike zone, correct?
It does, especially when there's a ball over my head, my first major league hit, and the bat always tries to swing at that ball. Manny would swing at anything.
He really would, and he was one of the great bad ball hitters of our time. Amazing. But I want to talk
remember
to
Rennie
you.
Stennett? Bob, do you remember Rennie Stennett?
It's 7
Rennie
hits in a
Stennett
game.
hit a double.
That's
he
right.
hit a double down into the right field corner at Wrigley Field one day in a game. And that was the first time that I ever saw a player hit a ball that bounced before it got to the plate. I mean, the Pittsburgh Pirates, that was the one thing that I loved about Danny Murtaugh. When spring training got started, the pitchers would be running in the outfield with Larry Shepard, the pitching coach, and Danny Murtaugh was in there watching all the hitters hit, and he would just stand in the back of the cage and he'd go, "Wheel that lumber, boys." I love that sound. I love Danny Murtaugh.
Great guy. It's unbelievable. And I wanted to bring you back to your entrance into the majors in 71, Kurt. We've talked about this in the past, but I mean, here we are, Municipal Stadium, this huge 80,000, it seemed like a dark place, and you had a couple different managers that year, and the team lost 100, and you had the lowest attendance in the league. I mean, was all this secondary to your excitement of being in the major leagues, not having to pay attention to the not so good things that were going on?
I don't even remember the bad things that were going on.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the stadium being a little miserable. But as far as the excitement of getting to the major leagues, and when I reported to the Indians were playing the Boston Red Sox. So I reported to Fenway Park. And I had 2 duffel bags and a suitcase. That was everything that I owned.
Wow.
Even after 2 years of college. So I went into Fenway Park. I remember going through that tunnel from the airport and it really being trafficy because it was right around 5 o'clock, 5:30. And when I got to the ballpark, our locker room was empty. I first had to try to get into the stadium because nobody knew who the hell I was. And I had to go to a couple of different gates before I finally got in because I didn't know what side of the ballpark to go in on. So the cab dropped me off. I'm wandering around with these duffel bags. They had to be heavy, but I didn't feel it that I had to lug around heavy bags because I was so excited and the adrenaline was flowing. But when I finally got in the locker room, it was completely empty. And the only guy in there was the clubhouse guy. And he said, "There's your locker, Rook." All the clubhouse guys and really everybody didn't refer to you at your name back then. They just called you Rook. So I sat down and it was Ken Harrelson's locker. Because Ken Harrelson had retired. And I took his spot on the roster. And I also took his uniform. And, Ken Harrelson was a pretty good sized man. He was 6'3", maybe 215, 220. I was 6'1.5". I weighed about 195. I could not get into Ken Harrelson's pants. I don't know how in the hell he got them on. But later on I found out, and especially after getting to know Ken, that he used to go every spring and get his uniform tailored. So the uniforms would arrive, and then he'd take them to his special guy, and they would tailor him so they looked really good on him. So it was too bad I didn't get an opportunity to play with Hawk, but I did get an opportunity to know him. I got an opportunity to play some golf with him, and going back to that 71 season, looking out on the field and seeing the Boston Red Sox take the field before we hit the first inning, was pretty exciting to me. Yaz and, just Tony Canigliaro was there. They had a catcher that seemed like he was there forever. And there's not very many people that remember his name, but the people that are really baseball oriented do. And the guy's name was Bob Montgomery.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he started, he was around for a long time. He really made, a great career, out of being a catcher that didn't play every day, but then again, he played quite a bit, for a number of years there. And then, just watching Rico Petrocelli play and, having Louis T out pitch against you along with Bill Lee and the rest of the guys that they had, it was a great thing. And Fenway Park remains, one of the most special parks, for me because of that.
And Kurt, having played in both leagues in the 70s and 80s, and back then they had separate umpires, and we always heard about National League low strikes, American League high. Was that the case? Did you find it that way? And which did you prefer?
That's a good question, because as I look back on it, I don't think that there was a preference for me. The National League was kind of known, and the guys took pride in the fact that it was the senior circuit. I remember Bench and Rose and guys like that talking about it. My first spring training in the big league camp with the Reds. And, they really looked at the American League as an inferior league. And the American League back then was known more for breaking balls, and the National League for fastballs, and also guys that you really didn't want to mess with when they took the mound. Bobby Tolan had to get scared to death to face Bob Gibson the first time. I don't even know how he did it, but that was the moniker on a lot of those guys, that their reputation preceded them. And you were beat before you got into the batter's box. Bobby Tolan sitting on the bench telling me the story that Bob Gibson was his roommate in St. Louis before he came to Cincinnati. And the first time he faced him, he hit a home run off of him. So he was hollering at him going around second base. Next time Tolan came up, he hit him in the helmet.
That's Gibby.
And that's his roommate. And if you remember back then, helmets didn't have ear flaps.
Oh, no.
Right.
The guys were crazy.
No doubt. Kurt, before we let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the things that you're doing in your podcast and follow you on social media?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Kurt Bevacqua, or no, that's actually, it is at Kurt Bevacqua. And then also at the Bevacqua Show, is Dirty Kurt's Dugout, which is my podcast. And you can also listen, to the podcast through, all the different avenues that you can get other podcasts on, iTunes, and, you go to Patreon, you can find out all the information, and Stitcher and places like that. We put that on once a week and have a really good time with it. So, and I congratulate you guys on your little deal here, doing the job that you do and getting the guests that you get. I appreciate it. I know how difficult it is, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on.
Well, Kurt, we can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to come back and be a part of the show. You're one of the great storytellers, and we really appreciate every time we get to spend a little bit of time with you. We hope you'll come back and do it again with us real soon.
I sure will. Thanks a lot, guys, and happy birthday, Bob. I heard you're celebrating, huh?
I appreciate that, and again, it's an honor spending the part of it with you, and I hope we can do it again soon, Kurt.
Absolutely. Let's do it. And I appreciate it very much.
All right, Kurt. Take care. All the best to you and your family. We look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Good night.
Thank you.
See you, Kurt. That is Kurt Bevacqua. Dirty Kurt is his nickname, and you can find his show online, like he said, on all the different podcasting outlets, and follow him at Kurt Bevacqua on Twitter. Great stuff there, Bob. And boy, so many other things. When he talked about Manny Sanguillen, that's one of the things I wanted to talk to him about. We'll certainly try to get him back on the show again soon. But Sanguillen was another one of my favorites as a Pirates fan growing up. And as you guys talked about, boy, there wasn't a pitch that Manny didn't love. So great to hear that story.
And Sangi I believe, had a birthday yesterday, Chris. Still going strong. So yeah, Kurt's one of the more fun guys you'll ever be around, and we can talk sports with him all day long, and baseball, and a long career with him, and a utility guy who played a long career. Those are usually the best guys to talk with.
We look forward to having him back with us soon. Bob and I will be turning on our spotlight on the positive, and we're going to do that on the other side of this real quick station break.